Tema Talks is brought to you by the Tema Conter Memorial Trust, which is Canada's leading provider of peer support, family assistance, education and training for emergency services, public safety, military personnel, and their families. Check out tema.ca for more information. The views, opinions, and endorsements expressed in each podcast episode are those of the host and the guest alone, and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. The subject matter of this podcast may be triggering for some listeners. Please take the time to get yourself in a calm and positive mind space before listening so you can get the most out of the podcast. Okay, cue the music and enjoy this episode of Tema Talks.
Hello, people, and welcome to Tema Talks. Thank you for joining me. As you know, June is PTSD Awareness Month, and this is the third podcast that's out in June. We have 5 more to go after this. So, along with that theme, there's something I want to talk about before we get into it today. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a clinical diagnosis. It's my diagnosis, and I believe it's the correct one. I see some people on social media expressing their dislike of the word disorder, which is fine. But I think where it gets a little bit scary for me, or I get nervous when I see people are just substituting PTSD with PTS, or post-traumatic stress. And they are not the same thing at all. I want to stress that, no pun intended, to you guys. Post-traumatic stress is something that everybody experiences. Everybody has something horrible happen to them. Remember, it's all relative to the person. And they develop symptoms of post-traumatic stress. Now, what happens most of the time is your brain processes that event properly, and you get over it and move on with your life. And you're able to remember that event without, physical symptoms or without the drastic symptoms that are associated with PTSD, which is diagnosed after you have the symptoms of post-traumatic stress for at least 90 days. So, after 90 days, if those symptoms haven't subsided, then you may be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Because your brain, because of an injury, an emotional traumatic injury, is in a state of disorder. It is unable to process that event, those memories properly, which causes a malfunction, a disorder. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because as mental health advocates, some of you that are listening, we need to make sure that we get our terms right. Because I believe when we start interchanging things or getting rid of a word because we believe there's negative stigma attached to it, or because we just don't like the word or it makes us feel bad, it creates a disconnect with medical professionals who we rely on to make clinical decisions and diagnose our condition correctly. We need to use the clinical terms, and we need to use them correctly. It also creates some confusion with the public, who we are trying to educate about PTSD and how it affects us. It ultimately affects everybody. It's a human problem. I tend to focus on first responders because that's my background, but it's a human issue and does not discriminate. I believe, and again, this is my opinion, I believe that if you have a negative reaction to the word disorder, or if you want to try to combat the negative stigma that surrounds it, first you have to find a way, any way at all, to remedy your feelings towards the word. Come to terms with it and embrace it. I've done that. Okay, and it's not easy. But you have to do that in order to take another step, in order to have post-traumatic growth. Okay, make it a part of your normal conversation. It's okay to use the word disorder. It's okay to have a disorder. Only then can we chip away at any negative stigma attached to this word. Okay, we can't do that by banishing the word altogether. That only validates the stigma. I believe we have to be more responsible with the language that we choose to use, especially as public mental health advocates. We have to do better. We have to strive to do better. We have so much more work to do. We need to focus our efforts on how to affect change with regards to inclusion, education, and support. We cannot get caught up in trying to change a word that forms the basis of a clinical diagnosis. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is absolutely, by definition, a disorder. And you know what? That's okay. It's 100% okay. That's my opinion, people. I want to hear from you. Whatever you think. I want to hear both sides. Please reach out to me. I talk about these topics because they're personal for me, because I have a strong feeling one way or the other, but also it's to evoke conversation. Try to promote this conversation and promote chat. Because then, like I say, then we can finally chip away at all this stigma. All right? Okay. That's enough for this episode. My guest this episode is Lisa Rouse. She's from New Brunswick. I met her through the Temaconte Memorial Trust. She is a 911 dispatcher. And she was wearing the headset on June 4th, 2014, during the Moncton shootings. And this event drastically changed her life. And we're going to hear about it. We're also going to hear how she got through it and her story of hope and resilience. I love this chat. I know you're going to enjoy it. Let's get to it.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to Tema Talks, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you. We've been working on this for a while, and finally we have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and thank you for having me on tonight.
Oh, great. It's going to be awesome. So, Lisa, I've known you for a while through your through the Temaconte Memorial Trust. I've seen you speak. For those of us who don't know you, for those that are listening, give us a little bit of your background growing up and how you got involved and how you ended up being a 911 dispatcher operator.
All right. Well, it's kind of interesting. I kind of fell into the job when I was young. Well, my father, he was a police officer. He was a police chief back in the day when Dieppe had its own police force. So I've always, I used to hang out in the police station, and a career in law enforcement or just helping people was definitely something that I always wanted to do. But I wasn't really sure which direction to go and everything. And then I found out about, just kind of heard about 911 operators and dispatchers. And I thought, that would be a really interesting job. And I have the kind of personality that when something goes really wrong, I get really calm and I'm like, okay, how am I going to help these people? So, naturally I just kind of gravitated towards there, and it's my passion, really. It's my dream job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have an older brother.
So did he go into law enforcement or emergency services, or?
No, but funny enough, he actually works for, he drives the snow plows and the big water trucks and everything, and he works for Public Works. Okay. So if we get a call, city related, then sometimes I get to call him and say, hey, can you go fix that? Nice. So it's kind of funny. Or if I talk to one of his coworkers, I'm like, say hi to my brother.
Perfect.
So we're kind of each helping the city in two different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Lisa, so you started your career as a 911 dispatcher operator in June of 2010.
I did.
Okay, so early on in your career, up to 2014, which we'll talk about in a minute, from 2010 to 2014, how would you describe, your career and working there, and how did you find it?
Oh my gosh, like I said, it's my dream job, it's my passion. there's never a day driving to work where I was like, oh, I gotta work, and like, I'd rather be doing something else. It's almost like an adrenaline rush when I'm driving to work. It's like, okay, what's gonna happen? How can I help people? So it's always been a really good feeling. I absolutely love my job.
Now, how would you say that you take good care of yourself? Would you say early on in your career to make sure that, you're always fit, emotionally and mentally to go in and do your job? Were the things that you did early on?
Just kind of the basic stuff, like just like fitness and health. That's always I've always been into that, and I know that really helps. And I've always had a really good support system. I have amazing friends, an amazing family, so I was kind of like geared to if ever anything happened, I had a good support system and I had the base, but nothing could have prepared me for 2014.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this. We're not going to dwell on it, but we need to talk to it because it is part of your story. So,
for sure.
June 4th, 2014, as a lot of listeners will know, were the Moncton shootings, where they had an active shooter in town, and it ended up that 3 officers died, 2 were severely injured, and you were on shift that day.
I was.
So walk me what you can through that day and through your emotions that day.
Okay. So, well, one thing that I will say is we always, coming in this line of work, we always kind of have the feeling like, okay, I know something really bad can happen, but it's not going to happen to me. For some reason, we kind of always have that mentality, and that's exactly how I felt. So it was just a regular night shift. I came into work, sat down, and things changed very, very quickly. And it's like, I almost kind of had like an out-of-body experience where when all that stuff started happening and you lose control. There's no one that can have control of a situation like that. So I think that was the worst feeling, was because when you're a dispatcher and operator, you have control of everything. So when I lost control, it just kind of blew up. It was a hard thing to go through, to just kind of give the reins over to someone else, and it was really hard. So I kind of had that out of body experience. And it was like if I was just looking at myself working, because my training kicked in and everything kicked in, and I was just working. And whenever I would kind of get a feeling of like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? I would push those feelings aside. Or when I would become like sad or scared, I would push those feelings aside. So kind of, I don't know where it went. I locked it up in a little box somewhere in my head, but I needed to get the job done. So that's what I did. So whenever I felt overwhelmed or scared, or I'd look over at a coworker and our faces were just like, we were just in shock, but I would push those emotions aside. And the one thing that I kept telling myself is, if I had no control at all of the situation, I just told myself, Lisa, just have a calm voice. Just speak calmly so that everyone, all the police officers that are listening, they know that like this person that's giving them the information has a calm voice. So that's all I did. I just told myself to do the best that I could, and then that's what it was. So it was a chaos would probably be the best word to describe it. Complete chaos.
Yeah. And
the adrenaline. I think I was in an adrenaline rush for like 2 days afterwards. It was just crazy. So that's pretty much how that was.
I mean, as a fellow dispatcher myself, that's where I spent most of my career. I mean, I remember, I dispatched some pretty big incidents here in Nova Scotia. None that were like that at all, thankfully. But what I can remember is, and I assume that you feel the same way too, and you can let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, that we take it to heart. Like our job is to dispatch, but we take the job to heart in that we see it as our mission to take care of the people that are on the other end of the radio.
Oh my God, you're bang on.
We are there to take care of them. So when something like this happens and you have no real control over their well-being, how does that make you feel? I mean, I know you don't feel it in the moment because you can't.
Oh, I remember.
But when you take that headset off, it hits you then.
It does. And I knew I knew all of the police officers that were injured and killed, so
Yeah.
that was hard. They were my friends, they were my coworkers, but like you said, as a dispatcher, you take care of these people, and I always refer to them as my members.
Yeah.
They're my members, like they're, I don't know if you could say the word kid, like they're my kids,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, you have that.
For me, they
feeling.
were my medics. They're
That's
my
right.
medics. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so the feeling, immediately I thought that everyone was going to be mad at me. It was my fault. That's exactly how
Yeah.
I felt. Like, oh, I was sitting there, I had that headset, this is all my fault. That's exactly how I felt afterwards.
So you take the headset off
Mhm.
and you go home.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Like, what was it like when you got home?
Well, we actually went for a little walk just to kind of wrap our heads around
Good,
what
okay.
happened. And then we didn't want to go home. We went back up there, the ones that, like, the initial operators that were working.
Right.
We went back up there and we helped for a little bit, but then they said, like, okay, no, like, you guys need to go home. So like I said, the adrenaline rush was out of this world. I was just laying there in bed and my heart was like pumping out of my chest. I've never experienced anything like that. And then the next days, it was a whole mix-up of, one minute I would be crying, and another minute I'd be on that adrenaline rush and say, like, okay, I want to go back to work.
Right.
And it was just like a big mess of emotions. And then I kind of put it all behind me, like in the back of my mind, and then I was just kind of normal Lisa again. I went to, I remember it was the Friday, so 2 days after, I brought my car for an oil change. I went to the grocery store, like as if nothing had happened. And when it all unraveled again was, we had a debriefing.
Right.
And then it hit me. I was like sitting in my car crying. I couldn't get out of my car to go to the briefing. I had to text my coworkers and say, someone come get me. Then it all hit me. So it took like 2 days, to hit me. And then, like I said, for the next few weeks, it was just a mess of emotion. 1 minute I was okay. 1 minute I wasn't. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, I bet it was. Now, did you end up getting a diagnosis of PTSD or anything like that from this?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I can't remember who and
Yeah.
and when and all that, but they did, yeah.
did you realize at the time, like leading up to that diagnosis, did you realize that something was wrong and that there was something that needed to be fixed?
At first I didn't really think that something needed to be fixed, or I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I knew definitely, like, at the debriefing you could sign up for having like a social worker or a psychologist call you
Right.
to do a follow-up, and I put my name because I knew for sure that they were going to be able to help me, but I couldn't really put my finger on it and say, like, oh yeah, I have PTSD. Like, I was still I thought everything was normal, and then they gave me, it's kind of funny, they gave me paperwork at the debriefing, and it referred to me as the traumatized person. And I remember looking at that thinking, and I was laughing with my friend saying, I'm not a traumatized person, but I was. I just didn't know it yet.
Now, how were the people that were close to you during this time? Did they sort of check in with you and say, hey, like, something's not quite right, or?
Yeah, my number one support person during all this was my mom.
Yeah.
And luckily, she was really good with all this kind of post-traumatic stuff because I lost my dad when I was 12.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of already went through like some hard times. So luckily, she would look at me and she knew exactly what was going on. She knew I was going to crash.
Right.
So she really helped me. And then I was talking to my friends afterwards, like maybe a year and a half, 2 years after. And I asked them, I said, was I kind of different? And they said, oh yeah, like you were not the same person. But I didn't, like, at the time when you're going through it, you don't realize it.
No, you certainly don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, even through that, even with me, it was, yeah, that's what happens to everybody else, but that's not what's going on with me.
That's right.
It's
yeah.
something different with me because I'm special, apparently. I'm not like everybody else.
That's right. That stuff won't happen to me.
Yeah, exactly. So you get that diagnosis and you start your road to recovery. So what was that like?
That was, and I wish I wish someone would have told me how much time it was going to take, but I think even if someone would have told me, I would have said, you're nuts. Like, I'm fine, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I think, I wish someone would have told me that it was going to take some time, because, like, after, let's say, 6 months, I was like, well, it's been 6 months, why am I crying? It's been a year, why am I having a hard time? So the time thing, I wish I would have had a better grasp on that.
What kind of, if you don't mind talking about it, what kind of therapies did you use or did you go through to try to reprocess these events?
So I went to, I was following a social worker, and she gave me some tools. And I know the same tools don't work for everyone, but for me, it was really the grounding technique. So when I started my gradual return back to work, I would sit there and hear stuff, and I would just kind of like, my mind would wander, and I was like, no. So the grounding technique was really good for me. So I would remind myself that it was, let's say, August. It wasn't June. It was August, and just ground myself with, just stuff around the room. And grounding is really helpful in the summer. You go outside, I can hear the birds, I can smell the freshly cut grass, all that stuff. In winter, it's a little harder. But yeah, grounding was really good for me. And I can't...
Did you go through any formal therapy such as like EMDR or cognitive behavior stuff, anything like that?
I did not.
Okay.
I kind of went in that direction. I was following a psychologist at one point, and she talked about the EMDR. But the funny thing is, I think with PTSD is that it's kind of like a wave.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're okay, sometimes you're not. So when I went to see her to do the EMDR, I was like, oh no, like I'm feeling a lot better and blah, blah, blah. So I actually ended my sessions with her.
Right.
And then I couldn't get back in with her afterwards. So
do you think you ended it too early?
I did, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish someone would have told me, like, okay, maybe you're feeling good now, but keep going to the sessions. So
I wonder how many people that happens to.
Yeah, I know, and the system is hard.
It is.
With
it's getting better, but it's certainly
I think a lot of people can fall in the cracks for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so Lisa, for you, how long were you off work?
The first time I was off work for, I think, a couple months.
Right.
I started again in August. So I stopped in June and then started again in August.
Okay.
And then I did my gradual return back to work, which is really important. If anyone rushes into it, I think they're setting themselves up for failure. So the gradual return is really important. And then I was good. I was full time. But then I had to meet with, I had to do some more interviews, further investigation and stuff.
Right.
And that brought everything back. It brought everything back, and then it was starting to come out in the media, and then people were messaging me, and it felt like it was all happening all over again.
Yeah.
So then that sent me for a spin. So then I was off again for another couple months, and then same thing, just went through therapy and did the gradual return back to work, and ever since then, I've been full-time. So.
Now, when you went back the second time, how did you find, how were you welcomed nicely, good support when you went back?
Some people, yeah, I had a nice welcome back sign on my locker.
Oh, nice.
And that was nice. So, but there will always be, well, hopefully not always, but there is that stigma. And, and the recovery is tricky because, like, for me, the biggest part was horses, equine therapy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You know what? Talk about it right now. So horses are a big thing with you, I know, in equine therapy.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
The thing with PTSD is if you see someone suffering, well, the best thing you can do to try and feel better is to get out. Get out and do normal stuff and just try. So a lot of people, like, let's say you'll go to the beach. You'll go to the beach, I'll go horseback riding. I'll have a big smile because I'm sitting on the horse and I love horses. I have this big smile. So then people tend to look at that, and with social media, that's the world we live in now. So let's say I want to post a picture of me on a horse.
Right.
And I'm so excited because I love horses. But people who are like the stigma and everything, they're going to look at that and say, well, look at Lisa. She's having the time of her life. She's not suffering. But what people don't understand is, like, for example, I had gone tubing one day just to try and get out of the house.
Yeah.
I'd gone tubing with some friends. And on the drive back, I was bawling and I was having a panic attack, anxiety attack. And so that's what they don't see. So that's the hard part with the stigma. I didn't have a bandage around my head because I had
there's no cast for your brain.
That's right.
Yeah.
So people, so that part's hard. But I knew that the equine therapy was helping.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because it was one of my retired coworkers. She had horses.
Okay.
So she says, come on up to the barn, let's go riding. And really, that's what, like, pushed me forward in my recovery. Like, it really gave me a boost. And the coworkers were texting her, emailing her, saying, like, we really see a big difference in Lisa. Thank you so much for helping her. So I think people need to do what clicks for them, like what their passion is. So for me, my passion was horses. So I said, okay, I need to fix myself. So I'm just going to dive right in and with the equine therapy. And horses are just amazing. Like, even if someone's not a horse person, I suggest that they do equine therapy because you're connecting with this 1,000-pound animal that has a mind of its own. And when you can connect with that animal, there's just something special.
Yeah, you can't even really describe it. Yeah.
It puts everything, all the struggle that you're having, it kind of puts a back seat to it, and you can just be in the moment with the horse, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, because unlike, I sort of see them on the opposite end of the spectrum as a dog. A dog, when you're not calm and when you're not at peace, your dog will come up to you and will, try to nudge you and get you out of that mindset. A horse, for the most part, won't go anywhere near you if you're not calm and at peace.
Right. That's right, because they feel what you feel. If you get up on the saddle and you're stressed and scared, that goes right down the reins to them, and they feel that. So then you sit on the horse and you got to really focus on, okay, I need to be calm, I need to breathe. So I think probably that's the biggest part of it.
So obviously the horses were a big part. Were you were into horses before the PTSD?
Before, my whole life.
Okay, excellent. So it was a natural connection for you.
That's right.
For sure. Now, you talked about some grounding. Were there other things that you started to do or other, activities that you put into your regular routine as part of a sort of a self-maintenance thing for yourself since?
Yeah, for sure. At first, so fitness and the gym, that was always a part of me, and eating healthy. But I was, like, when it all first happened, I was so, I guess, damaged, if you will, that I was having a hard time going to the gym. So I think what I suggest is just resting. Rest is, like, so important. So when I was finally able to stop beating myself up and just spend time home with my dog and watch Netflix, I know it sounds silly, but just stopping, like, I finally stopped beating myself up, and I said, Lisa, you need to rest. So I did that, and then when I got all the rest that I needed, then I dove into the gym and the fitness and the healthy eating. Right. So, and then that really helped me. And then just recently, I went to see a dietitian, and she gave me, like, a little meal plan and everything, and it's not, like, to lose weight or anything. It's more to be healthy.
Right,
and
for wellness.
That's right, wellness. And oh my gosh, like, on top of the like, feeling good and looking good and all that, like, it just helped me tremendously. Yeah, so I would suggest that for sure. Like, and it doesn't have to be going to the gym and lifting these crazy weights. Like, if someone just wants to start by going for walks, like, just any physical activity.
Just do something. Do anything.
That's right. So if you feel like you need to rest, you're tired, that's okay. You take that time to rest, but afterwards, then you got to change it up and, like, okay, I need to work on my body. I need to work on my health. Yeah. Yeah. So that was very helpful.
Lisa, is there anything that you knowingly avoid now that will stir things up? Like, I'll give you some examples. Like, for me, some things that have always been hard for me since are the grocery store. For some reason, like, really crowded places, I try to avoid them if I can. Certain types of TV shows, like I used to always watch all the paramedic firefighter shows. Loved them. Like Third Watch way back in the day, I was on that.
Yeah.
Since my PTSD, and probably shortly before that, I was unable to watch them because I found that it really bothered me. And then even recently, which I, again fell into the trap of, hey, I'm good. Like, I'm good to go. I'm going to watch this new firefighter TV show. And for like 3 days afterwards, I'm a mess.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized that, you know what? I just can't do that. I'm just going to avoid it because it's okay,
Yeah.
Is there anything like that for you?
I was like that at first. I tried to watch some shows like that, like first responder shows, and then I ended up just bawling.
Yeah.
So I took a break, I stepped back, and so I worked through that, so I'm good now. There's no shows really that bother me too much. But any like really big tragic event, I have a really hard time like seeing that on the news. That really bothers me. So I kind of try to avoid that. And then it's kind of funny, but recently I had to actually use my breathing techniques because I decided to download a movie on the plane. We were heading to Cuba, so it was a long flight, so downloaded a movie.
Right.
And it was a really like intense, stressful, crazy movie, which was really good, adrenaline filled, but I had to like, oh my God, Lisa, and I was sitting in a plane.
Yeah.
But I had to take a moment and just breathe and work on my breathing techniques. So I think that's always going to be with me, but as long as you use your tools that you learned, then you can kind of conquer anything. But I'm trying to think of what else. Well, I try to get as much sleep as I can because I really find that if I don't get all my hours of sleep, if I'm tired, I'm a mess. I can't handle anything. So that's another thing that I guess you can't really say avoid, but I really focus on my sleep.
You make sure that you do.
That's right. Because if I don't get my sleep, I just can't handle anything. So that's a big one for me.
Cool. Thanks for telling us about those things, Lisa. So you've been back to work now for a while.
Yep.
How's it going?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, when I first went back to work, there was a few calls that were really intense and brought everything back. But just kept using those grounding techniques and everything. And I was able to work through them. So now we still get those some really scary calls that remind me.
Right.
But by I don't know if it's a miracle or if it's just me just constantly working on my skills with the tools and the techniques, but I'm able to work through it. There was one incident, however, that really, really affected me. It was when the police officer in Nova Scotia,
right,
when he was killed on the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was working that night, and it brought everything back. And something that I didn't realize was linked to PTSD, I had to actually Google it and research it afterwards. It's not, a lot of people, and it goes with the stigma, a lot of people think that we are doing this to ourselves. That, like, oh, that person is just pretending to have PTSD or whatever. It's not just your mind, but your body actually reacts. So after that happened and I got all upset, my arm actually got all numb and tingly. And I didn't know that could happen, but I researched it, and it's your brain, like, it's your brain that does that to your body. So for anyone out there who says, like, oh, that person's faking or whatever, like, we can't help it. It's our mind that takes over. It's the brain that takes over.
Yeah, you have some definite, like, physical symptoms that'll manifest.
That's right. So when my arm was all tingly and I thought I was having a real medical emergency, but that's just what it was. It was my brain saying, like, hey, whoa, like, you got to work on this. You got to fix this. So that's when I started thinking, like, okay, well, I'm doing really well. I'm at work full time, but should I do the EMDR? So yeah, I still have questions. I still have the road to recovery never ends, and it's certainly not a paved road. It's a bumpy road.
It is, yeah, it is for sure. So, Lisa, we'll end off with this. So, if there's anybody listening right now who is struggling at any level, if they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
The number one thing I would say is go see a psychologist. Even though they don't feel like they need to, I think seeing a psychologist, they'll give them the tools. And if ever something pops up, like your arm gets numb for no reason, then you'll be able to work through it. You'll recognize it. You'll recognize the kind of the warning signs. So definitely see a psychologist or some kind of therapist. And then the other thing I'd like to tell them is it's not, like, you're not going to feel like that forever. Like,
right.
If you, it's not like a sentence that you get. Like, you're going to work through it. It's going to get better. But I wish, like I said, I wish someone would have told me it's going to take some time, because I kept beating myself up and I kept blaming myself. So I'd like to tell those people, just take your time, do what you need to do, and take care of yourself, because no one else is going to take care of you for you. You need to take care of yourself.
Oh, that's really important. Thank you for that,
Yeah.
Lisa. It's been so awesome.
No problem.
It's been so awesome talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time. I'm so proud of you and happy for you that you're back to work and happily back to work, because that doesn't happen.
Thank you.
That doesn't happen for everybody. So
No, it doesn't.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm really sorry that you went through what you went through in June of 2014. But after that, I want to thank you for being an example and for speaking about your experience and for making some sort of a positive out of it to help people. I watched you speak this past year in PEI at the symposium, and you're awesome. And
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You know I love you. So, just I want to thank you and thank you for coming on, and you know that we're always here for you. I'm always here for you if you ever need anything.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, because the one thing I told myself afterwards when I was going through all of that recovery was, I just want to help someone. Like, I just want to use my experience to help someone else. So thank you for talking to me tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. You've already done it. I mean, you've already done it over and over again, manyfold. So congratulations. Thank
you.
You've already done it. So anyway, take care of yourself, Lisa. Keep doing a great job.
Thank you very much, and you as well.
Thank you.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
And there you have it. Another awesome, special human being telling their story of hope and resiliency through their mental health journey. So thanks, Lisa, for taking the time to come on. I really appreciate it. I loved it. Hope you loved it. She wanted to give a little update to everybody. She is going to be speaking at the Peer Recovery and Resiliency Symposium on October 27th and 28th at the River Cree Casino in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And who's putting that on, you might ask? Well, none other than Daniel Sundahl from Dan Sun Photography. It's his show. It's going to be amazing. It's sold out. So if you're like me and you haven't registered yet, then you're probably out of luck. But check the Facebook page. I know that there's a Facebook page, Peer Recovery and Resilience Symposium, in case some more openings become available. And if you're going to this, it's going to be great. An amazing lineup, including Lisa and people like Teresa Coulter. Basically, it's going to be a group of mental health advocacy superstars all under one roof. It's going to be fantastic. And she also wanted to let you guys know that we just had the anniversary of the Moncton shootings on June 4th. And she wanted you to know that it is tough. It's still tough, the anniversary. But she does get through it with the help of her friends and family. And she's doing okay. All right. Do you like playing golf? I like playing golf. Do you want to golf with myself, Kevin Davison, and David Wilson at the Help Our Heroes charity golf tournament on September 29th at Granite Springs Golf and Country Club in the Halifax area? If you do, here's what you need to do. Write me an email. The email address is tematalks, all one word, at tema.ca. In the email, I want you to show me a screenshot of you following our Facebook page or following us on Twitter or on Instagram. One of those three things. That's easy. Then I want you to tell us what you do to maintain your mental wellness. And then I want you to tell me what your favorite episode of Tema Talks was. It could be an old episode of Up Talk, too. What's your favorite and why? Do those things, and then we'll take those names, we'll draw one out, and that person can complete our foursome and golf at no charge to them. All you have to do is get yourself to the golf course and have an awesome day. All for a great cause. Proceeds going to the Temacon Memorial Trust. This event put on by Bobby McKenzie. Check it out at the Help Our Heroes Charity Golf Facebook page if you want to learn more. Also, we still have our Facebook page contest going, so we're up around 800 likes now, which is great. We're slowly climbing, trying to get to 1,000. Once we do, we're going to draw names from all 1,000 people, and we're going to give away 5 Tema swag bags. Don't know what's going to be in them yet, but myself and Kat from Tema are going to come up with something, and it's going to be fantastic. No worries. Okay, so if you already like the page, if you could share the page, that would be awesome. And if you're listening and you haven't liked the page yet, go look it up on Facebook, Tema Talks Podcast, and give us a like. That would be awesome. Thank you ahead of time. And always a big thank you to everybody who continues to support the podcast, continues to listen, subscribe, leave feedback, and share the podcast. I thank you very much. We couldn't do it without you. This podcast would not exist without you. So thank you. And one last thing I want to leave you with. I want to go back to this PTSD thing that I started with at the beginning of the podcast. I want to make one differentiation, if you would allow me to. Movements like what Peter Tripp is doing, where he changes the words that are associated with PTSD instead of post-traumatic stress disorder. His movement is positive talk, support, determination. That's awesome. And that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, I just wanted to make that clarification. I think his movement is awesome. He's a good friend of mine. Consider him a brother, and what he's doing is awesome. But when we talk clinically about PTSD and start interchanging terms and that kind of thing, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, I think I have that straight now. All right. Well, you're going to hear from me in a few days. So until then, take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.